Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again for another episode. I'm absolutely thrilled today to have double trouble with me, Matt Rasmussen and Ryan Frye. Gentlemen, first of all, welcome to the podcast. How are you all doing today?
Doing great, Tom. Thanks for having us.
Oh, man.
All right, gentlemen, one of the reasons I'm so excited to visit with you guys today is your journey to founding Mode One and then your work in compliance data collection and cybersecurity. As many of the listeners to this podcast are compliance officers, but the emphasis on this podcast is on innovation, and that's what I see you guys directly in that innovative space. So with that, could I ask you to tell us each about your professional background? And Matt, I'll start with you.
Sure. I'm Matt Rasmussen. I've been a lifelong e-discovery nerd. I've been in the space for about 25 years now. I worked on litigation service providers and for some AmLaw 200 law firms throughout my career. And that's what really kind of brought me into the digital forensics and compliance space, just handling some large scale matters for a lot of my clients there.
Ryan?
Awesome. Hey, Tom. My name's Ryan Frye. I'm our Chief Innovation Officer at ModeOne, and I really bring the perspective of digital forensics and testifying experts to our product and support team. So I've been in the business for about 18 years. I worked at large service providers, built labs on 3 continents is the story I like to tell. And so really digging in on anything technical is what I really enjoy. So looking forward to the discussion.
So Matt, could I maybe ask what led you to found Mode One? And I'm always intrigued by someone who looks at the same problem that I might look at, but sees a completely different solution.
Sure.
We say innovation can come from the mad scientists locked away in a castle forever, but that really doesn't happen. It's really somebody who has a background and experience and either sees a market need or a market opportunity. Can you tell us about your innovation journey to Mode One?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think pre-Mode One, if we were doing a traditional kind of collection for any of my clients from their smartphones, it was requiring me to use some of these law enforcement tactics to seize everything from the phone to then take it back to my lab and analyze it. Tom, if I needed a text message between you and Ryan, I'd have to take your entire contents of your phone, your photo library, your banking information, your health information, all your text messages. And I realized that when I was interacting with my clients to kind of tell them the process and what I was going to do to get to the data I was actually interested in, I got an incredible amount of pushback from that individual because it's a huge invasion of privacy, right? Their lawyer said, I just need some texts from you. They've got a forensics guy showing up to their house and grabbing all their photos, right? That just didn't compute. And so I noticed that I was giving the same speech every time. Hey, Tom, I'm here. I'm not going to look at all your data, but I need to collect all your data so that I can get to the relevant pieces of it. And I was doing a very large M&A at Old Co. And I had a custodian that wasn't making the cut. And I gave the same speech. I'm grabbing your whole phone. I'm not going to look at it all. He was an entertainment executive and the red flags went up for him. He was like, absolutely not. He threw the whole book at us about you can't grab the data that's not responsive, blah, blah, blah. And so it made me start thinking, why do I have to give this speech? Why do I have to collect everything when I know there's databases on the phone or artifacts on the phone that are all that I'm interested in? So Ryan and I and my other partners, we put our heads together for about 90 days to try and do some R&D to see why the requirements that we collect everything. And we cracked the code on the fact that we don't need to do that, right? And so that's what kind of brought us into this journey here is we really wanted to bring technology into the workplace here that can talk to these devices a lot more intelligently. We can be a lot more scalable and really kind of alleviate. For me, it was kind of self-preservation. I didn't want to keep having those conversations with my clients. And so that's why we built it.
So what intrigued me about that story, Matt, was from the regulatory perspective, we had massive cases involving data from basically communication data on phone with very large banks, particularly during the Biden administration. And many compliance professionals struggled with how are we going to comply with this? And many of the providers that I talked to basically said what you just said. They gave that
Mhm.
speech and
Yeah.
they found it as distasteful or as difficult as you did, or certainly as repeating it as much as you did. I was convinced that somebody would come up with a solution, and you guys certainly have. But when you sit down with, I'm just going to say banks because I know they're regulating this area, or financial services, or traders, or any of the other usual suspects that the regulators have focused on, are you talking to a compliance professional, a chief compliance officer? Or are you talking to a CISO? Are you talking to the head of IT? Or is it perhaps someone even different?
So we usually are interacting with about three different groups every time we're working with financial services clients or banks and things like that. So it's definitely like the CISO IT side of things. There is like a legal ops kind of side of things. And then there's usually like the GC. And so those are the three groups we're really kind of talking about, right? It's the CISO and IT that are facilitating the collection and making sure that we're adhering to security standards. It's the GC to make sure that we're balancing the right privacy, that we're interacting with the phones in a legally appropriate manner. And then it's legal ops because they're the ones that are kind of orchestrating between those two groups to make sure that we're handling these things efficiently. It's a cost reduction to the client and things like that. So those are the three groups that we're really interacting with the most.
Ryan, in terms of your role with Mode One, could you describe for us what it means for you to be the chief innovation officer?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's finding the next greatest hurdle to overcome for our clients. We started with how can we be targeted from smartphones, and we've only increased what we can slice with a scalpel from there, being able to filter by other sets of metadata with dates and participants. In so to me, it's really just finding the next hurdle. So for us, it's going to be the implementation of AI. It's a big kind of buzzword right now, I know, but and honestly, it hasn't been kind of figured out for smartphone data. So we're really excited to kind of continue working on that and kind of bridging the next gap here between compliance and risk a little bit.
I was wondering if one of you all could detail some of the key differences in your world around encrypted and unencrypted data. Here in the United States, it's typically is a text, but outside the United States, it's WhatsApp or some other app. And many companies have struggled with having two sets of messaging going on, one in the United States and one in the rest of the world. How do you help a company walk through or think through those? Who wants to take that one?
Brian, you want to take that
Yeah,
one?
I can start, Matt. Sure,
Sure.
absolutely. So I think the biggest challenge for our clients and organizations that we talk to is data visibility. I think they're balancing right now that encrypted messaging is great for security, but if messages can't be properly archived or retrieved when needed, then whether you need it for legal hold or audits or internal investigations, I think organizations could face compliance risks. So I think they need to make sure employees aren't using unauthorized apps that don't support the compliance friendly archiving. I think that's what we're seeing the most.
So I started hearing presentations on this topic maybe 3 years ago, but it may even have been 2 years ago. It struck me that there is a solution in place that compliance professionals use all along, all the time. And it's a risk management framework, something along the lines of the following: identify your risk, assess your risk, put a risk management strategy in place, train your employees on that strategy, implement the strategy, monitor the results of that implementation, and then upgrade or continuously improve as appropriate. If you find that to be a persuasive framework, where does Mode One come in? Can you help a company actually craft a risk management strategy, or are you more on the monitoring end to help them monitor the strategy they put in place?
I think it's
Matt,
a
you
little,
want to take that one? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think I hang on one second. I think my internet connection is just crawling for a second. So Ryan, you mind taking that? And I'm going to troubleshoot here for 5 seconds.
Yeah, no worries. Tom, I think ModeOne's on two ends of the spectrum. We're out there giving advice and early direction in the planning stages. right? We want our clients to think about their policies. I know that's not always the funnest topic of the hour, but defining what's appropriate for business use and how it should be used, especially when it comes to encrypted messaging. If it's required, it needs to also work and flow into your compliance needs. But at the same time, by being a technology company, we're able to give our clients the ability to monitor, okay, we've defined our policies, we've put up as much restrictions or rules as we can technologically. How do we audit and review and monitor that? And I think that's what ModeOne brings is when we're interacting with the devices, we can retrieve enough data off that device to tell you, hey, did you know this person's using Confide, an app that's not in your policy, that's not compliance ready for archival and things like that. So I think we hit kind of on both ends a little bit.
How do you help organizations transition from encrypted messaging to from a non-encrypted to an encrypted messaging? Is that a discussion that you help guide them through and then maybe even help? And don't say you don't talk about policies because I'm a complete policy geek. So I love talking about policies and I want to talk about policies, but do you help them sort of craft that policy around the encrypted app and then move forward with the other tools you bring to bear?
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that's security focused is going to want to get off of traditional text messaging. I think the FBI put out a pretty good warning many months ago about how insecure unencrypted messaging is for business communications. It makes it vulnerable either to be intercepted or leaked or exposed in some type of litigation. But we help them. There's a little self-preservation, right? Mode One is focused on a lot of the popular apps. And when we are guiding our clients into picking the encrypted messaging app that will work for everybody, right? For their security, for their privacy, to then also be able to funnel that data into their archive for compliant purposes. We're generally promoting the apps that we can support because of these security reasons and how they can scale globally so that anybody in their office all over the world can use it. And it's sort of streamlined and probably something they already know today. We talked about WhatsApp a little bit, right? A lot of people know there's billions of users on WhatsApp. A lot of people already know how to use it. We'll kind of work with them on both ends there and help them find a path forward.
So let's shift over to cloud hosting and hybrid SaaS or SaaS models. What do you guys see around the decline of on premises data centers and how that really ties into the requirements for data to be maintained for some period of time, up to and including 7 years?
Yeah, so I think we're seeing a lot of for us, it's great, right? It really gives a lot different kind of scale for what we're doing and a lot more control in your data, specifically for specific privacy regulations like GDPR and CCPA and anything that's got international or local kind of privacy regulations, right? It allows us to kind of containerize where that data is held. We can spin up that kind of storage or any of those different kind of regions to be maintaining where that data is held. And the other thing for us is just that the ability for cloud to kind of from day to day, that's where we're kind of seeing that a lot of our clients are definitely moving to the cloud. I think 5 years ago, if I would have had a cloud conversation, everyone was still kind of on their on-prem data center, kind of, had that kind of lens. And I think the industry as a whole is really a lot more comfortable with the security around cloud and the control around cloud and being able to scale.
Yeah, Matt, I think companies are moving away because it's too expensive and complex to have a kind of single target now. And the rise with remote work too in global operations, I think businesses and they need infrastructure that you can access anywhere. You can be anywhere, work anywhere, and connect anywhere. And so I think I agree. Not being tied to a physical location anymore has been the massive trend.
What are some of the key compliance and cybersecurity concerns that you try to counsel clients on? Maybe two or three of them.
I think it's where the data is stored, who has access to it, and how it's protected. I think certain industries or even regions, really, we've talked privacy controls and export controls a little bit, but there's some strict rules around that of where it needs to be and how it needs to be secured. And so I think making sure your cloud provider that you're working with meets those standards. I think We use a lot of advanced technology to monitor configuration. It's kind of an interesting concept or perspective. A lot of data breaches don't happen because the cloud provider failed. That doesn't mean it never happens, but most of the time breaches are because they're just not set up correctly. The security controls aren't there. I think as long as you kind of have those front of mind, you can adopt cloud pretty easily.
Where do you guys see cloud compliance evolving in 2025 or even maybe further down the road?
So personally, and then Matt, I'll let you chime in with anything, but I think we're going to see more AI driven compliance monitoring. I think that'll be pretty exciting instead of just relying on the periodic audits that you might have to do annually or quarterly, but having continuing compliance enforcement through AI machine learning. I think that'll be the big hit of the next year or two because that'll just drive so much automation and efficiency, I think, around that.
Yeah,
So in
no,
terms
Ryan's
of
absolutely.
oh, you got go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, I may have a little bit of a delay here, but I just was gonna say, I think we're also gonna see a lot of assessment in risk with AI as well, being able to determine not just apps or things that are outside of usage policies and things like that, but looking for insider threat or poaching of employees, things like that. I think we're gonna see a lot of continuous monitoring in that area as well.
Matt, I think you mentioned GDPR and CCPA, and I wanted to pick up on both of those laws to maybe turn to some of the risks of overcollection. One of the frustrations I've heard from a lot of compliance professionals in this arena is there's no US national law. And having 50 different laboratories can be great, but it can also mean having 50 different standards plus GDPR. How do you help counsel a client in this just forest of different rules, regs, and laws around data privacy in the context of having to collect the data as well?
Sure. So I think one of the nice things just through the US, like we may have to have 50 different labs, but I think that what's nice about CCPA and the other privacy laws that are coming out from other states is it's less about where the data is stored. It's about how it's handled and treated. And so we're really being able to kind of have an overarching kind of single pane of glass to that data and being able to match up specific policy profiles to that data depending on where it was collected from. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that we have to have 50 different labs to be supporting California data or Nevada data and things like that. But being able to counsel our clients on tracking where data was collected from, how it needs to be treated, and kind of building those privacy profiles and data handling profiles, that's been huge for us. And that's how we kind of counsel our clients on it.
So the strategies, maybe now turn to data protection just for a few minutes. You've hinted, not hinted, you've actually said what the FBI has told us, but data protection is equally as important. How do you sort of balance the work you guys do in the area of data privacy with the discussions you have to have with clients around data protection?
Ryan, you want to take that one real quick?
Yeah, Tom, say it one more time. I think
What I wanted to bring into the discussion was data protection. Because as important as data privacy is, and we all acknowledge its importance, we started this podcast by basically saying, hey, the FBI said move from unencrypted to encrypted for data protection purposes. How do you have that conversation or even counsel a client on the need for data protection, balancing with the data privacy that we've talked about really throughout this podcast?
I think the key is a targeted collection. I think you're only gathering specific data for that compliance or legal need or investigative purposes. I think a targeted collection helps you balance that, right? You're able to ensure that only the necessary data comes off the device, leaving the personal data untouched, using the right tool to make sure the data is encrypted in transit as well, encrypted at storage using kind of a zero trust policy, right? So that not just anybody can access that extraction once the data has left the phone, but who's the necessary team? Is it the compliance archive? Is it the investigator? Is it the HR team? And I think all of that needs to be transparent to your employees So I think they need to be informed of kind of what's being collected and why, and then how it's protected as well.
So, what would you say are the three top action items compliance officers should prioritize here in Q1 of 2025? And then we'll take a look down the road a little bit at our next question.
Yeah, so I think the three things to be focusing on is bringing technology into the enterprise to be handling this kind of data type, right? That's a much different data type than a file system or a laptop, right? And so it really requires a different technology stack to be able to handle that data. They should be really finding ways to kind of implement AI, like we were talking about, right? For ways to assess compliance within specific policies or usage policies, but as well as risks inside the business, like I was talking about for insider threat or price fixing, things like that. And then really kind of updating their internal policies to not only for acceptable use policies or privacy policies on the data, but also like training of their employees on how to be using these data, these phones and data types, just to make sure that they're mitigating the risks for the regulatory risks, their legal risks, their HR risks. That would be my top three, I think.
Right. If being the innovation guy, let me maybe pitch that same question, but down the road, maybe 2030, or even in the interim as these issues evolve so quickly. What are you guys thinking about for maybe 5 years down the road, or out, perhaps even better? How should a compliance officer think about these issues as we evolve to 2030?
Yeah, I think the privacy regulations are just gonna turn upside down. I think we're gonna see that all over the country in the United States. I think we're gonna see more regions adopt that, like GDPR have. And so I think the need to be agile as those evolve, I think we need to adopt AI and compliance monitoring because that'll help us monitor again in these stricter data privacy regulations that are going to happen. It's inevitable. Companies won't just really be expected to follow the rules. They'll need to prove in almost real time that they have oversight over their data security and compliance. So I think adapting that mindset early, adapting encrypted communications, it's going to become the norm. Anybody on the iPhone world that sends a green bubble just has to understand that's not secure. I mean, that's going to create new challenges. It already has for compliance teams. We've talked about that. So making sure that you're focused early on that, so you're not trying to play catch up later, that you're actually preparing and proactively kind of adopting these changes. I think a couple of those things would be what I would be focusing on in the next few years for sure.
And then how is Mode One helping to prepare for this evolving digital landscape? I know you've said, Ryan, you've talked about AI and potential for that. Is that one of many tools or directions that you guys are considering to really help corporations in this area?
Yeah, it's an active R&D for sure. We've got to find a better way to sift through these millions and millions of text messages that go through Mode One. So today we're helping companies collect mobile data in a really fast, precise, defensible way and not over collecting anymore and creating those unnecessary risks. We're staying ahead a little bit by building solutions that help you get to encrypted messaging, that help you target and protect our employees' privacy at the same time, but we'll definitely be driving into how do we sift through documents with AI and bring out possible issues.
Yeah. And one thing I'd add there real quick is just AI is absolutely one component of it. But the other thing is, Tom, like you said, this is a very quickly evolving landscape. You could create your own chat app tomorrow. That could be the new Signal or the new WhatsApp, right? And I think that's the other thing we're really helping kind of bridge the gap for our clients, right? We're certified Apple and Android developers. So we get early OS releases, we get the new device releases. And so AI is a huge tool for the analysis and kind of risk assessments, but also staying ahead of the technology, the changes in the technology. I think being that partner and building out the support teams for our clients is another way we're really helping kind of bridge that gap.
Gentlemen, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask both of you all if any of our listeners wanted to connect with you, what might be the best way for them to do. And if they wanted to find out more about Mode One, what would be the best place or places for them to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone can visit our website. It's just ModeOne.io. So really easy to get to. If anyone wants to see a demo of the technology or talk to us, there is a way to book a link or find us on LinkedIn or anything like that. We'd love to get a hold of or get in touch with everyone and showcase the technology we're bringing to the industry here.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me. I hope we can continue this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.